All right, so Halloween. Costumes, candy, spooky decorations. We pretty much know the drill, right?
Right. But what if I told you those Halloween traditions we often take for granted? They're like little windows into how different cultures view, well, life and death.
Okay, now that's an intriguing way to put it. I'm always up for a good mystery, and Halloween definitely has that spooky vibe.
Exactly. And the best place to start unraveling this mystery is, of course, at the beginning. So let's journey back to the ancient Celtic lands of Ireland and Scotland, the very birthplace of Halloween.
Ireland and Scotland. Just picturing those rolling green hills and maybe a spooky castle or two. It's like stepping into a storybook. But those landscapes definitely have a certain magic to them. What kind of Halloween traditions did they conjure up?
Well, picture this. It's a chilly Halloween night, and you're huddled around a crackling bonfire, its flames reaching up towards the inky black sky.
Okay, I can already feel the warmth. There's something so primal and comforting about a bonfire.
Absolutely, and in ancient Ireland, those bonfires weren't just for warmth. They were seen as powerful protection against evil spirits.
So it was battle of light versus darkness.
You got it. The ancient Celts believed that on Halloween, the veil between our world and the spirit world was at its thinnest. And those bonfires, they were like beacons of safety in a night filled with unseen dangers.
Makes sense to me. It's like, hey, spirits, look over there. Nothing to see here. So how did they handle the spirits that weren't deterred by a little fire? I mean, we've got trick-or-treating now, but what did they do back then?
Well, they had something called guising, which you could say was the precursor to our modern trick-or-treating, but with a fun twist.
Oh, a twist. I do love a good plot twist. Do tell.
So instead of just knocking on doors and saying trick or treat, children participating in guising had to earn their treats.
Earn them? How so?
They'd dress up in costumes, but then they'd have to sing a song, recite a poem, tell a joke, something to prove they were worthy of those tasty treats.
Wow. So it was like a mini talent show in exchange for sweets. Talk about pressure. I bet those kids practiced their acts for days.
I know, right? It makes you wonder what those ancient guising performances were like. But it just goes to show how Halloween has always been about this playful interaction between the living and the dead, between the seen and the unseen.
Okay, I have to admit, you're making me see Halloween in a whole new light. No pun intended. But speaking of treats, I heard a rumor about a special kind of cake the Irish make for Halloween.
You must be talking about barmbrack.
Barmbrack. It sounds more like something you'd chant in a magic spell than something you'd eat.
Well, maybe there's a little magic baked inside. Imagine biting into a slice of this delicious fruitcake and finding a hidden treasure.
Wait, a hidden treasure? Like buried treasure in a cake? You can't just leave me hanging. What kind of treasures are we talking about?
Well, depending on what you find, it could tell you something about your future. A ring, for example, symbolized marriage. A coin meant wealth and prosperity.
Oh, so it's like a delicious fortune cookie, but in cake form. Love it. What about those who weren't lucky in love, or wealth, I guess? What did they find?
Well, let's just say finding a thimble wasn't exactly a cause for celebration. It meant a life of singlehood.
Oh, no. Talk about a scary prediction. I can only imagine the drama at the dinner table if someone got the dreaded thimble. Okay, so Ireland has the bonfires and the fortune-telling cake, but what about Scotland? What spooky traditions did they bring to the party?
Well, if the Irish were looking for their future in a slice of cake, the Scots were finding theirs in something a little more, shall we say, peeling.
Apple peels. Okay, you have to tell me more. This sounds intriguing.
It was a form of divination. They'd carefully peel an apple in one long strip, toss the peel over their shoulder, and the way it landed was supposed to reveal the initial of their future soulmate.
No way. So it's like a romantic game of alphabet soup, but with apple peels. That's amazing. I can just picture a group of friends huddled together on Halloween night, meticulously peeling their apples and trying to decipher the peel-shaped messages from the universe. Did they have, like, professional apple peel readers back then? I can just imagine those apple peeling parties. But it's funny how some traditions stick around, even if they evolve a bit along the way, like haunted houses. I mean, we've all been there. Those dark hallways, creepy sound effects, someone jumping out to scare you.
And you know what always gets me? Those chainsaws. I know they're not real, but that sound just sends chills down my spine every time. But it's all part of the fun, right? That adrenaline rush, that feeling of confronting your fears in a safe environment.
It's like a collective boo that we all agree to be scared of. But those elaborate haunted houses we see today, they had to start somewhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just a modern invention. The idea of testing your bravery against spooky creatures in eerie settings, that goes way back.
You mean like back to those ancient Celtic traditions we were talking about?
Exactly. It's like this primal human need to confront the darkness, even if it's just for fun. And some of those haunted attractions today take that fear factor to a whole new level. I mean, have you heard of Penhurst Asylum or the 13th Gate? Those places are legendary.
Oh yeah, I've heard stories. People wait in line for hours just to get the daylight scared out of them. It's like a badge of honor to survive those places. But, it's not just about the haunted houses. Our neighbors up north in Canada, they have their own way of adding a little mischief to the mix.
Oh, you must be talking about Mischief Night.
Mm-mm.
It's the night before Halloween, mostly celebrated in Ontario, where harmless pranks are not only tolerated, but almost expected.
Wait, really? So it's like a free pass to get a little wild, but in a fun, mostly harmless way.
Exactly. Soaping windows, toilet papering trees, maybe a few good-natured scares. It's interesting, isn't it, how cultures build in these little releases of social tension, these moments where we can bend the rules a bit.
It's like we need that little bit of mischief to balance out all the sweetness of Halloween candy. Speaking of which, let's talk about another sweet tradition, pumpkin carving. It's become so iconic, but I heard somewhere that pumpkins weren't always the go-to canvas for our jack-o'-lanterns.
You heard right. Those perfectly round orange pumpkins we carve today, they're actually a relatively recent addition to the Halloween tradition.
Wait, really? If not pumpkins, then what did they carve?
Believe it or not, it all started with turnips in Ireland. Those tough, knobby root vegetables were the original jack-o'-lanterns.
Turnips. Ouch! I can't imagine trying to carve one of those. They seem so much harder to work with than a pumpkin.
Right. It makes you appreciate those smooth, carve-ready pumpkins, doesn't it? But it just goes to show how Halloween traditions can evolve as they travel across cultures, adapting to local resources and customs along the way.
It's like a game of cultural telephone, but with spooky traditions instead of whispered phrases. I love it. But pumpkins or turnips, the tradition of carving faces into them, it's fascinating. It's like we're trying to capture something, some kind of spirit or energy, even if it's just for fun.
It's true. And, it makes you think about how Halloween often coincides with other cultural celebrations around the world that deal with those same themes of life, death, and remembrance.
Like Dia de los Muertos in Mexico. But it's important to remember that while they happen around the same time, Halloween and Dia de los Muertos are distinct celebrations with their own unique traditions.
Absolutely. Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, is about honoring and celebrating loved ones who have passed away, not fearing them. It's a time to remember, to share stories, and to welcome their spirits back with open arms.
I love that. It's about connection, not fear. And the imagery is always so vibrant and colorful. Those beautiful ofrendas, the altars decorated with flowers and food offerings, the sugar skulls. It's so different from the spooky decorations we often associate with Halloween.
Exactly. Those ofrendas, they're not meant to be morbid. They're a way for families to connect with their ancestors, to create a welcoming space for their spirits to visit.
So tell me more about those ofrendas. What makes them so special?
Well, every element has a symbolic meaning. For example, the vibrant marigolds, they're believed to guide the spirits home with their scent. And the food offerings, often the deceased's favorite dishes, meant to provide sustenance for their journey.
It's incredible how something as simple as food can become this powerful symbol of connection between the living and the dead. And let's not forget those amazing sugar skulls. They're everywhere during Dia de los Muertos, but they're not supposed to be scary, are they?
Not at all. Those brightly decorated skulls, often adorned with a person's name, they represent the impermanence of life and the enduring nature of the soul.
It's a celebration of life, even in death. I love that. And speaking of iconic imagery, we can't talk about Dia de los Muertos without mentioning La Catrina, that elegantly dressed skeleton lady. But here's something I bet most people don't know. She wasn't always associated with the Day of the Dead.
You're right. La Catrina actually started as a piece of social commentary. Mexican artist José Guadalupe Posada created her in the early 1900s as a satirical depiction of the Mexican upper class, who were obsessed with European fashion and culture.
No way. So she was a fashion icon turned Day of the Dead ambassador. What a journey. It's amazing how cultural symbols can evolve and take on new meanings over time, reflecting changing social norms and beliefs.
It's a reminder that culture is alive, constantly evolving and adapting, just like we are. And Halloween, with its diverse traditions from around the world, is a perfect example of that.
From the ancient bonfires of Ireland to the vibrant ofrendas of Mexico, it's clear that Halloween is more than just a spooky holiday. It's a tapestry woven from centuries of tradition, a reflection of how different cultures view life, death, and everything in between. So we've explored the heart of Halloween in Ireland and Scotland. We've seen how it's celebrated with a unique North American twist, and now it's time to broaden our horizons even further. Where are we headed next on our global Halloween adventure?
Let's hop across the pond to England, where Halloween often takes a bit of a back seat to another November celebration, Guy Fawkes Night.
Guy Fawkes Night. I'll admit I'm not too familiar with that one. What's the story there?
Well, picture this. It's a chilly November evening, and bonfires are blazing, fireworks are lighting up the sky, and there are these effigies, these figures of a man named Guy Fawkes being burned.
Okay, burning effigies. That definitely sounds like a story I need to hear. Who was this Guy Fawkes, and what did he do to deserve such a fiery fate?
Well, it goes back to 1605. Guy Fawkes was part of a plot to blow up the Houses of Parliament.
He was going to blow up Parliament. Whoa, talk about a bold move. What was the plan and how did it go so wrong?
Well, Fawkes and his co-conspirators were Catholic, and at the time, England was under Protestant rule. They were hoping to overthrow the government, and they stashed 36 barrels of gunpowder in the cellars beneath the House of Lords.
36 barrels of gunpowder. That's insane. They weren't messing around, so what happened? Did they pull it off?
Thankfully, no. The plot was foiled at the last minute. An anonymous tip led authorities to Fawkes, who was caught red-handed guarding the explosives.
Oh, that's a relief. Can you imagine if they had succeeded? History would have taken a very different turn.
No kidding. So, to celebrate their narrow escape, the English began celebrating November 5th as Guy Fawkes Night. It's a way to commemorate the foiled plot and to remind everyone to stay vigilant against those who might try to disrupt the peace.
Wow, that is a story for the history books. So instead of trick-or-treating, they have bonfires and burn effigies of Guy Fawkes.
Yep. It's definitely a more, shall we say, explosive affair than our modern-day trick-or-treating.
I can say that again. But it's amazing how this one historical event has evolved into such a unique cultural tradition. You know, it's funny how fire seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of these celebrations. From the bonfires in Ireland and Scotland to ward off evil spirits to the Guy Fawkes night bonfires in England. It's like fire represents this powerful force of both destruction and purification, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a force of nature that demands respect, but it can also bring people together, create a sense of warmth and community. It's like a symbol of the cycle of life, death, and renewal that we see reflected in so many cultures.
It's incredible how something as simple as a bonfire can hold so much meaning, right? But speaking of cultural differences, let's shift gears and journey eastward to a place where Halloween looks totally different. Japan.
Japan, yes. Now, there's a culture that knows how to celebrate. And Halloween in Japan, well, it's less about spooky and more about spectacular.
Oh, spectacular how?
Think massive street parties, elaborate costumes, parades of people dressed as their favorite anime and manga characters.
Wait, so it's like a giant cosplay festival? That sounds amazing.
It is. Halloween in Japan is all about letting your imagination run wild. People put so much effort into their costumes, and the energy on the streets is electric.
Wow. That's so different from the trick-or-treating and haunted houses we're used to, but it sounds like a blast.
It definitely is. And it reflects how Japan has taken this holiday from another culture and made it its own, infusing it with its own unique sense of fun and creativity.
It's amazing how adaptable traditions can be. But I think we have time for one last stop on our Halloween World Tour, and this one's a bit different. We're headed to the Philippines, a country with a rich history and a very unique relationship with death and remembrance.
You're in for a treat. Halloween in the Philippines is a fascinating blend of solemn remembrance and joyful celebration. Imagine families gathering in cemeteries not for somber mourning, but for overnight vigils filled with food, stories, and laughter.
Overnight vigils in cemeteries, that's definitely not something you see every day. But it sounds like a beautiful way to honor loved ones who have passed away. Tell me more.
So families will often clean and decorate the graves of their loved ones. They'll light candles, share meals, tell stories, and reminisce about those who are gone. It's a time to feel connected to their ancestors, to keep their memory alive in a very tangible way.
It's amazing how these traditions offer a different perspective on death, don't they? It's not about fear or sadness, but about love, remembrance, and connection. It really makes you think.
It really does. And, as we've journeyed through these global Halloween traditions, I'm struck by the common threads that connect us all. Whether we're warding off evil spirits with bonfires in Ireland, celebrating with cosplay and parades in Japan, or sharing stories with our ancestors in the Philippines, Halloween offers this unique opportunity to connect with something bigger than ourselves. Whether it's our cultural heritage, our personal beliefs, or simply the joy of coming together as a community.
I couldn't have put it better myself. It's like a reminder that even in our differences, we share these fundamental human experiences, these common threads that weave us all together. So the next time you carve a pumpkin, reach for a piece of candy corn, or maybe even jump at a spooky sound, take a moment to appreciate the rich tapestry of traditions that have shaped this hauntingly fun holiday. It's a celebration of life, death, and everything in between, and it's a reminder that even in the darkest of nights, there's always room for a little bit of magic. Thanks for joining us on this global Halloween adventure. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic. Until then, happy haunting.